Welcome to the Talent Development Hot Seat, a show where I interview business executives, talent development professionals, and thought leaders to find out what has been successful and challenging in the world of talent development. My objective is to share ideas, valuable lessons, tools, advice, and trends. My hope is that all of this will ultimately help you, the listener, expand your knowledge, grow your career, and accelerate your success as a talent development professional. Building trust and getting people to work together better as a team. It's something that we talk about a lot, and it's not always easy to do. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Talent Development Hot Seat. I am your host, Andy Storch, and I am so grateful that you're joining me today for a solo episode in which I want to talk to you about the importance of building trust on a team and how you can go about doing that. Now, every team and person is different, and so not everything will work for you. Every situation is different, and that's, again, why I always take a very consultative approach to every client interaction. With people I work with, always start by asking questions to understand the situation and try to figure out what is the right, best approach. But I had the opportunity to run or facilitate a team offsite for a new client recently in New York City. And the day went very well. I got great feedback from my client. And I wanted to share some of that information with you, as well as some of what I did, as well as some ideas for how you can build trust on your team, especially if you're taking over a new team or you're helping a leader who took over a new team, or there are new members joining a team and you want to help them build trust, build rapport, get them operating better as a team. And that was the goal with this offsite that I flew into New York recently to help with this offsite. And that was the main goal. Was we've got some new people coming together on a team. They haven't necessarily worked together before, a new leader that's only been there about 3 months. How do we get people to not only trust each other, but really get to know each other and really get out of silos and start operating together as a unit, as a team, to help each other, support each other, to challenge each other, and then connect them to the company goals, or to the team goals, the organizational goals, and get them moving forward on those. How do we do that? That was the main challenge that I got from my client, and I'll tell you what I did to address that, as well as give you some other ideas on what you can do to build trust and rapport on a team. And by the way, in case you haven't heard, I am partnering with my friend and partner, Bennett Phillips, on our first conference later this year, the Talent Development Think Tank. And at that conference, we are going to be providing a lot of opportunities for people to interact with each other, to learn from each other, to build trust, to build rapport. It is going to be like no other HR or talent development conference you have ever been to. And it is because we are going to provide those opportunities. We are requiring, not asking, but requiring every single one of our speakers to make their sessions interactive. That way people have a chance to learn from each other, to work from each other, and to enjoy their time instead of sitting there listening to PowerPoints like what happens at most conferences. And that's the way I run all of my sessions with my clients. They're all experiential. They're all interactive. That said, most of the work I've done has been with kind of predetermined content from different solution providers. And so this opportunity to run this team offsite was a little bit different for me. But because I've studied this a lot, I felt confident and comfortable going in. So let me tell you what I did. As I mentioned, one of the big goals was to build trust and get them operating more as a team. And we started the day with introductions. There were about 10 people in the room, and the team leader kicked things off. This is the global head of talent development for a fairly large company, by the way. Kicked things off by asking people to introduce themselves, who they are, how long they've worked there. And I asked, and a fun fact. And the fun fact is a great way for people to get to know each other a little bit. You know, there was someone that had been teaching drums for a long time. I'm trying to remember some of the other fun facts that came up. Someone who was big into skydiving, which I did recently. And those were cool. What I asked people to add to that is, what do you want to get out of today? And that actually sometimes that can be very surface level. People might just say, well, I don't know, or, I want to find out more about where we're going as a team. But this team was pretty good about opening up, and a couple people already shared that they felt like people were operating in silos, or they didn't know each other that well, and they wanted to operate more as a team. And so they were hoping to get to know each other better, get to know each other's social or working styles. And so we're able to kind of build that in to part of the day. And it also backed up the goals of what the leader had set up. And this is an important part, right? Because the client, the leader of the group, could say, I want to get this out of the day. But if we go around the table and everyone says, I want something different, then we know we have a little bit of a mismatch. And if you cater to only one side, then the group might be unhappy. Luckily, we had a pretty good match here. But asking people what they want to get out of the day, really what they want to get out of the day, opens things up and allows us to think about, okay, how do we want to structure this day? Because my client gave me a lot of flexibility in how to structure it. We had an agenda, but a lot of that got thrown out the window as we went on and progressed throughout the day, because I wanted to give people really space to get to know each other and really build that trust. Now, here's the key, and where I took my first chance after we went around and talked about what we want to get out of the day, and some people started airing a little bit of their concerns about the organization and the culture and some things that have not been going well or have been bothering them. It was great to get that stuff out. The next question I asked was for people to share what they're afraid of. What is their fear? And I don't mean, generally, are you afraid of spiders or heights, but what are you afraid of at work? And I had an idea of what some of these things might be. And the first person to share, she opened right up and shared what I think is a very common fear, which is that, hey, I've been here a long time. I've been doing this work, but I'm really afraid that it's not going to be appreciated anymore, or that I might not fit into the new team and I don't know what my future looks like. And I'm not sure if what I'm doing is enough. I'm not sure if it's good enough or I'm really appreciated. And that was a great way to set the tone. And there were some tears in there, and some other people shared their fears about the work they've been doing and how they relate to the team and their uncertainty about the future. And that right there, people getting vulnerable and being willing to share their greatest fears about their work or whatever it is, their greatest challenges. I think in all the work that I've done, the studying and talking to people and exploring, experimenting myself, this is the number one best way to build rapport, to really bond people, is through vulnerability. Because when other people talk and act like they have it all figured out, we either kind of get intimidated, or we write it off, or we don't offer our help, or we don't really connect with them. But when they share openly their fears and their challenges, then we are able to bond more with them, because we all have fears and challenges as well. And we can go, okay, I can relate to that. They have that. And also, I want to help them. This person is crying now because she's uncertain about her future. I want to be her friend. I want to console her. I want to help her. And I see a lot of that. And yesterday, I was on a conversation with a new person I met through LinkedIn, who's going to be coming on the podcast soon. And he was sharing, he gave me some really nice compliments about how the brand I put out there and how authentic I am. And that's one of my big goals, is to be as authentic as possible, because I think people will connect better with that. So you'll never see me pretending that I have it all figured out. And so I actually set the tone in that meeting. When I asked people to share their fears, I said, let me start. I haven't really done, I've done a lot of, I've been facilitating workshops all over the world for 8 years. It's mostly, like I said, with content coming in. I haven't done as many sessions like this that are wide open. And my client gave me an agenda, and I'm not a very organized person. I like to be flexible. And my fear is that this day is going to go the wrong way, or get out of hand, or really not meet her expectations, and she won't want to work with me anymore, and I'll be rejected. That's my fear. So I shared that fear with them, and that allowed them to open up. We went around, and people started sharing their fears as well and getting vulnerable. And then from there, we went into sharing our personal stories. Now, we asked people to think back about their entire lives, all the pivotal moments, the influential people, the work they did, the things that happened. and share their story. Take 10 minutes to share their story with the group as it relates to leadership. So they were all in leadership positions, directors or VPs or managers with people reporting to them. So how did what happened to you shape you as a leader and make you the person you became? And I can tell you that we gave everyone 10 minutes, and I think 9 out of 10 people went over the 10-minute mark. One person only took like 5 minutes. He was very efficient. And funny enough, he was actually, I think, the most tenured or the oldest member of the room. So he could have had the most to say. He was just more efficient with the way he told his story. But I was looking at the clock and thinking about stopping people, but I saw everyone connecting with the stories, with the message, with what they're learning from each other. And so I let things go on. Like I said, flexibility is what I value and what I saw as that other people were valuing in the day. And so having everyone get a chance to share their stories, and we're not just talking about work. Some people stuck more to like the roles they've had in the company. One person had been there 22 years and she shared the different roles and the learning moments, especially when she got tough feedback that she was not being a good leader and she had to make a pivot, and then the new opportunities that opened up. We also had one person share a story about adopting a child and some of the very challenging moments that came from that. When one person sharing their experiences at summer camp as a kid and how that shaped her leadership journey and the leader and manager that she is today. And I think we learned a lot about each other. And that was so important for them to really connect with each other, to learn from each other, to hear each other's stories. And I don't think we take the time for this very often. If you think about all the people you work with, we often have these surface level conversations where we talk about the weather, we talk about our commute, we might talk about our weekends. What'd you do over the weekend? Oh, we had a barbecue. We had some friends over. That's nice. Maybe you get a little bit about what's going on with your kids. You might have one or two good friends that you actually get into deep conversations with. But oftentimes people don't make the space to tell their personal stories and like where they came from. And I didn't know that about you. I didn't know you went to summer camp, or I didn't know you worked in this company and had that role. And you have this strength that we haven't been leveraging. That's crazy. We need to take more advantage of that. So you start to learn more about people, things that you can leverage for them in the job they're in. And I think it allowed people to really connect with each other, bond with each other. And then we needed to get to business, right? We wanted to talk a little bit about innovation and connect to company goals and come out of the day with some actionable items. So where we went from there was I have some content from my partner BTS around digital disruption. And we talked about how companies get disrupted. I shared a couple examples. In particular, one example that I go through is going back to 2007 when Nokia was the largest handset maker in the world. 1 billion cell phones out there were Nokia, and Forbes magazine had a picture on their cover of Nokia and said, "Will anybody ever catch them?" And the same year, Apple came out with the iPhone. And now, if you have any awareness of business or news, you know where things went. We are now in 2019 as we record this, and Apple is roughly a $1 trillion company, the biggest company in the world, depending on the day. Amazon's up there as well. Google's up there as well. And Nokia is nowhere to be seen. It got acquired by Microsoft and kind of tucked in as a business unit. They still do some things on the back end, but they're not a known brand by consumers. And we talk about what happened and how they got disrupted and who they were catering towards, and how Apple succeeded by having a really big focus on the consumer, putting the customer first and pulling them versus what Nokia was doing and pushing things and really focusing on the channel providers like Verizon and AT&T versus paying attention to what customers wanted. So then we go into an exercise about what do you want your future to look like as a talent development group within this company. What does your Nokia future look like 10 years from now? What does your Apple future look like 10 years from now? And then what do you need to do to make that happen? If you want to be this amazing talent development group that's developing your people and is kind of the gold standard for the company and the industry, what are the things you need to do to get there? And then from there, we went into, we did some design thinking. And so many of you might be familiar with design thinking. There are a lot of different ways to do it. I used some maps and some prompts and got them thinking differently, think outside the box, share a lot of ideas. How can we go about building that team that we want to become? And then we finish the day with some action items on, um, what are the ideas, the big ideas that came out of this, and then who's going to take the lead. How will we make these things happen? Who will take the lead? And this group had some really big goals on becoming sort of the gold standard, defining the culture within the company. But there were also some really simple actions that came out of it that they needed to do. Like, for instance, they wanted to bond more as a team and have more social activities, and that's one of the other tactics I'll share with you in a moment. And so they assigned someone to be a social chair and organize weekly social activities, and that's going to bring them closer together as a team and build their culture. And you might be in an organization where this is already happening on a regular basis. You see the benefits of that. Or you might be thinking, wow, we don't do any of that, or we don't do any of this team building stuff. Maybe we should think about it. So if you are thinking about doing some team building, if you are looking at organizing something like this to bring a team together and to help them bond better as a team and to build trust, let me give you a few more ideas. By the way, I am available as a professional facilitator. Come run your team offsite, depending on what you're trying to do. So feel free to reach out to me. I'll give you more information at the end of this episode. So we talked about fear, we talked about vulnerability, we talked about coming together on disruption and challenges and goals. Here are some other ideas. We talked about sharing personal stories. Here are some other ideas for things that you can do to build trust and rapport on a team. So first is sharing personal values is a big one. Have people go through an exercise to determine what their personal values are, compare those with others in the room. There's no wrong answers. You learn about people and what's important to them. And then you can actually look at what those shared values are and use them to come up with a shared group of values for your team and connect that to your mission and where you're going. Another thing is you can talk about past and current challenges. What are the challenges that people are dealing with? Not just complaining, but what are the hard things about my job and about what we do as a group, and how can we support each other better? You can talk about personal styles. There's some exercises and there's some different ways to go about this. I've seen a lot of different exercises around personal working style. And it's always a good eye opener for people if they haven't been through this before, to realize that, like, hey, other people don't work like me. The simple example I always like to give is that I'm a very social person. And so if I go into a meeting with you, there most likely I will start by asking you about your weekend and where you live. And like, if you have a spouse and kids, like, I really want to get to know people. And other people, I've learned, like to be very efficient with their time. And they see that as a waste of time, right? If you're going into a meeting, let's get down to business and let's get to work and get it done. And you might be one of those people. And you might be thinking, oh my gosh, I hate when that guy comes into the room and starts talking about the weather and the weekend and the barbecue or whatever. But if you're working with someone like that, like me, you learn that you need to stop and take the time to chit chat and get to know them. And for me, it goes the other way around. I know if I'm working with someone who likes to be more efficient, then I need to curb that, chat for 30 seconds and then go, okay, let's start this meeting and get into it. So you learn about people's working styles. That's always really helpful. The next thing, provide a forum and have people really listen. What are the challenges? What are our goals? What are we working on? What do you think is going well in our organization? What's not going well? What could we be fixing? What ideas do you have? And really listen to them. Have people get involved with the goals and the vision. So what do they think about the goals? How are we going to get there? And have them feel like their voices are heard. So instead of just telling them, here are our goals, go out and do it, create the space for people to discuss what the goals are. Do they agree with them? They don't have to agree. By the way, you can still say, look, I know you don't agree, but these are the goals. This is what we're going to go do. But give people a space to talk about it and feel like their voice is heard. That builds trust. Challenge people and give them safety and a space to try new things. This creates an innovative culture. It also builds trust. When people feel like you've got their back, and you're letting them try new things to innovate, and that you're there for them to support them even if they fail. If you are a leader, sharing challenges and failures, especially for you as a leader, if you're willing to share your own failures and the mistakes and the things that you learn from it, that builds so much trust, so much rapport. And What you're doing is you're being transparent, you're admitting challenges, you're admitting failures, and you're being authentic. And I think that more than ever in the history of our country and our world, people value authenticity and transparency. They want to hear the real story. They want to hear what their leaders are really like. They like that vulnerability and that authenticity. They don't like BS, and people are going to find out anyway. So stop pretending that you have it all figured out and that everything works fine, that you've never made a mistake before. If you've been listening to this podcast for a while, I always ask my guests about their biggest failure. And I've noticed that some are quite happy to share openly what their failures are. Others were very protective and share kind of a surface level thing. I'm an open book, by the way. I'll always share what those things are. I'm not worried about what people think about me. And in fact, I've learned that when you are willing to share your mistakes and your failures and be open about that, then going back to what I said about vulnerability, that builds more trust and more rapport, because people look at you and go, oh, he's a real person. I can relate to that because I've screwed a lot of things up too, right? So I'm more open about sharing this. Now, you can't go around talking about your failures all the time. Like, people don't want to hear about it. They want to know that you can be successful, that you know what you're doing, because they want to follow a winner. But they want to follow a real person, an authentic person. So I would encourage you to encourage your leaders in your organizations to be more open, transparent, authentic, to be willing to share their mistakes. You might know that I run a simulation called Multipliers based on the best-selling book by Liz Weissman. And one of the exercises in there is called Talk Up Your Mistakes. And it gives people space to talk about the mistakes they've made and what did they learn from them. And it allows people to bond and learn from each other. And I find that that's always a great exercise for people to do. So let's see, where was I? We talked about the safety. We talked about being transparent and being open, honesty. Another one related to that is share observations and feedback with each other, especially the great things that you've noticed and learned from each other. So if you notice that someone in your group is really good at something, let people share with each other, help support each other, give people ideas, share what their strengths are, share gratitude as well. Hey, Judy, I've been working with you for a while and I really appreciate how you supported me on that project the other day. And it was really helpful for me. And I love what you do. And I think you have a strength around being able to bring people together, whatever it is. I think people really appreciate that. And that builds that rapport, builds that trust. And then finally, one of the things I mentioned earlier that came out of the meeting I ran was social activities. Have people do fun things together. I think by spending time together, talking, having fun, laughing, they're building trust and rapport. I think there's science behind that. And I didn't take the time to look that up, full transparency, but I know it's true because the people that I've spent time with, had fun with, laughed with, bonded with, I have more of a bond with them. I've built more trust, more rapport. And it's hard to do this sometimes, to take time away from work, and hard to justify it. We've got this big project. Everybody's busy. You really want to take time and have people go to happy hour or do this fun trust building activity. But it usually pays off because people build some more trust and they support each other. And then they're more engaged, they're more productive, and they're more supportive of each other at work. So these are some ideas and some things you can do. There are probably plenty more things you can do, other ideas out there. If you have an idea that I didn't share, please feel free to share that with me. I'd love to hear from you. If you have questions about this, I would love to hear from you. And if you're interested in doing this for your team or a team in your organization, reach out to me. As I mentioned, I'm a professional facilitator. I love doing things like this. I would be happy to provide this service if it makes sense. Like I said, I will always start with questions to ask, what are you trying to achieve? And do I think that I can help you achieve that goal? And if I don't, maybe I can recommend someone or something that can help you achieve that. And if you, and by the way, if you want to reach out to me, my email address is astorch, ASTORCH at advantageperformance.com. That's astorch at advantageperformance.com. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn and reach out to me there. And if you want to find out more about the conference that we're running later this year, that will be highly interactive, where we are going to network and learn and grow and connect with each other and do a lot of interactive things, It is called the Talent Development Think Tank, and you can get tickets at tdtt.us. That's tdtt.us. Head on over there, check it out. We've got some great keynote speakers lined up, including Liz Weissman, who wrote the book Multipliers, Josh Burson, who's well known for the really understanding the future of learning and talent development. And we're going to talk about trends. And we have Julie Winkle-Giulioni, who was on this podcast recently and is the best-selling author of the book, Help Them Grow or Watch Them Go, a very popular episode already. She's fantastic. And we are in conversation with a few other speakers as well. We're going to have interactive sessions. So come check it out. Talent Development Think Tank. Get your tickets at tdtt.us and reach out to me if you want help with your next offsite and building trust. Let me know if this was helpful. And I hope that you have an awesome day.